The sharp ring of a phone shattered the silence of our bedroom, piercing the darkness like a needle through fabric. It was a sound that usually meant one of two things: either a late-night emergency at Maddie's advertising firm, or my mother with another story about her neighbor's troublesome cat. The glowing red numbers on the nightstand read 1:17 a.m. I had just begun to slip into sleep after another grueling shift at the hospital. Maddie, ever the light sleeper, reached for her phone with quick precision. "Yeah, it's me," she said softly, trying not to disturb the peace of the room. "No, it's fine, just a scheduling thing. Tomorrow works too. Okay, bye." Her voice was hushed, deliberate, controlled. She returned the phone to its place and rolled back under the covers, but something was off. Her movements were stiff, rehearsed. The usual warmth that came when she curled into me was absent, replaced by a kind of tension that didn't belong. Half asleep, I couldn't place it, but the unease settled in my stomach like a stone. "Who was that?" I murmured, my voice hoarse. She hesitated, just for a beat too long. "A coworker," she answered, her tone tight-clipped. "They had a mix-up with tomorrow's schedule." I nodded and let it go. Or at least I pretended to. It wasn't uncommon for her agency to call it strange hours, tight deadlines, sudden campaigns. But that night, something felt different. It was like a string had been pulled too tight. Something inside me knew. I didn't understand it yet, but my body did. My instincts screamed what my brain wasn't ready to accept. By morning, I couldn't ignore it anymore. As soon as Maddie left for work, I picked up her phone and checked her call history. The most recent call had come from an unknown number. With trembling fingers, I pressed redial. The phone rang twice before a man answered. His voice was deep and composed, and the sound of it sent a chill crawling up my spine. "Hello," he said. I froze. Words failed me. My mouth felt dry. I hung up immediately, hand trembling as I set the phone back down. The reality I'd known only hours before began to slip from beneath my feet. She hadn't been honest. That call hadn't come from a coworker. Maddie, my Maddie, the woman I'd trusted with my whole heart for 8 years, had lied. The realization hit hard, crashing into me like a wrecking ball. All the little signs I had ignored suddenly clicked into place. A nauseating cocktail of betrayal and disbelief roiled inside me. The rest of the day passed in a fog. At the hospital, I moved through my rounds like a ghost, barely registering the people or the tasks in front of me. I didn't confront her right away. I knew I had to be strategic. I needed to gather myself first, figure out what came next. I refused to be the man who simply withered under the weight of infidelity. No. If she had scripted my role as the oblivious husband, I was about to rewrite the ending. That evening, when she walked through the front door, she greeted me with her usual forced cheer. "Hey, sweetheart, how was work?" she asked, giving me a peck on the cheek. I felt nothing. Not warmth. Not affection. Just emptiness. "It was fine," I replied flatly. "How was yours?" She launched into some tale about brainstorming sessions and difficult clients. I barely heard her. My mind was fixed on the voice I'd heard that morning, and the sick realization that she was living a double life. "I noticed you got a missed call last night," I said, casually setting down my book. "Funny thing, I redialed it this morning." Her face changed instantly. All the color drained from her cheeks. Her eyes widened with shock, and fear flickered behind them like a flame catching wind. What?" she stammered. "The call," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "From 1:17 a.m. The one you said was a coworker." She swallowed, her throat bobbing visibly. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't do that," I said, standing now. "Don't insult me by pretending." I turned and walked toward the window, facing away from her. "You know I spend my days with patients in trauma wards. I read people for a living. And right now, I'm looking at someone who's terrified because she got caught. You can stop lying now." She didn't respond. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. I continued without looking back. "You told me you were at a conference last week," I said slowly. "But you weren't. You were in a dingy hotel in another city, with someone else." When I turned back around, she was no longer the composed woman I once loved. She looked small, pale, fragile. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to the floor, sobbing. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered through her tears. Spare me, I said coldly. I don't care about your excuses. I turned and went into the bedroom. I packed a bag, just a few things I'd need. I couldn't spend another night under the same roof. When I stepped back into the living room, she was still on the floor, crying. Where are you going? She asked, her voice barely audible. Away from this. From you. I walked to the door, paused only to say, I've already spoken to a lawyer. The process has started. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I simply closed it behind me and walked out. Not just from the apartment, but from the life we had built together. There was nothing left worth salvaging. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved into a small apartment not far from the hospital. The divorce was long and bitter, but I didn't argue. I let my lawyer handle everything. She begged for explanations, sent long emails, tried to make me listen. But I was done. Truly done. When the papers were finally signed, I felt a strange sense of peace. It wasn't joy exactly, but it was relief. A weight had been lifted, and I was breathing freely for the first time in months. I decided it was time to start over, so I packed up again and moved to a new city, far from the ruins of my past. I traveled a bit, rediscovered the parts of myself that I had buried beneath routine and betrayal. One morning, months later, I stopped by a quiet cafe not far from my new apartment. I ordered coffee and settled in with a book. And that's when I saw him, the man from the phone call. He walked in with Maddie by his side. He saw me first. His face went rigid, pale. Maddie followed his gaze and froze when she spotted me. Her mouth opened slightly, as if she were seeing a ghost. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I simply smiled. A slow, knowing smile. Then turned back to my book, and let them stew in the mess they had made. Their story was no longer part of mine.